Even though Five Nights at Freddy's has tons of different characters that help solve the story in their own way, there's one cast of wacky animatronic animals that always felt mysteriously out of place, yet somehow still important: the Mediocre Melodies. When I started looking into the full history of these things, I found some pretty crazy information about these characters scattered across the franchise. Information that might just reveal the real dynamic between Henry, Emily, and William Afton, the true identity of the Rockstar animatronics, the relation of the Mediocres themselves to the Vengeful Spirit, as well as the early and late history of the Freddy Fazbear locations before Security Breach. These animatronics aren't just simple side characters. I believe they could be crucial to solving some mysteries we didn't have an answer to before, including a huge one that's been bugging us for years: the real identity of the Vengeful Spirit and why he's so vengeful. So strap in, theorists, and let's get right into it. The Mediocre Melodies were first introduced in Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator, with the band comprising Happy Frog, Mr. Hippo, Pigpatch, Orville Elephant, and Ned Bear. They were unlockable as animatronics to add to your pizzeria and could give you an achievement if you got all of them. But that was pretty much it, until the next FNAF game, Ultimate Custom Night. Here they all appear with a shared mechanic: they traverse the ducts above the player to reach your office. Upon killing you, there's a small chance you'll hear a faint voice echoing everything the melodies say. But I'm sure you know about all this if you clicked on the video, so what's the big deal here? Well, with the mysterious voice in UCN almost definitely being the Vengeful Spirit, I think there has to be a reason why the spirit speaks specifically through the Mediocre Melodies and no one else. And after doing some digging, I think I know why the Mediocres are important. The designs of these animatronics are pretty simple, and similar to other animatronics designed by Henry: simple plastic bodies with hinged jaws operating on poles at the base of their heads, as well as more primitive tech compared to Afton's creations, like the music boxes connected to the Mediocres and their cheap look. I think this primitive design is a big hint towards the Mediocre Melodies being older than we think. We know Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator probably takes place around, or shortly after, 2023, thanks to the HRY223 message found in the game's Insanity ending, and since the pizza place was likely operating on a very low budget and with whatever scraps Fazbear Entertainment still had to its name, I think it's safe to assume the Mediocres are older tech, likely from the 1980s or the early era of the company's history. But here's the thing: I don't think the Mediocres were originally made by Fazbear Entertainment. I think they were actually meant to indicate what happened to Henry directly after the missing children incident. Let me explain. It's a pretty common theory in the community that after the MCI, William Afton was kicked out of Fazbear Entertainment by Henry and forced to start Afton Robotics. But I actually think it was the other way around. I think Henry was framed for the murders, tried, and arrested, but released due to lack of evidence, as we see in the FNAF 1 newspapers and the Silver Eyes, meaning that he was forced to leave Fazbear as a result. And I've got proof. A lot of people think Henry was the one who started the FNAF 2 location, aka the new Freddy Fazbear's from 1987, with new animatronic tech to protect kids from William Afton. However, I don't think this is the case. The so-called security systems implemented in the toys failed to stop William from killing the DCI victims in the Save Them minigame, which leads me to conclude that the security systems don't even exist in the first place. They're just bait placed by William so he can kill more kids. And it goes further. At the end of Night 5, Phone Guy mentions that Fazbear is looking for the founder of Fredbear's Family Diner. William doesn't necessarily fit the bill for that, since he's literally working at that FNAF 2 location, so the only co-founder remaining is Henry Emily. Plus, the iconic purple guy sprite with the golden badge makes this more likely. Afton wouldn't have to sneak into the pizzeria if he was the manager, as implied by the fact his badge is golden. He could just kill the DCI without suspicion and just leave. Him being the one in control of Fazbear Entertainment after the MCI also allows William to just quietly work on Circus Baby's Pizza World and the Fun Times. After all, both of Baby's establishments are owned and managed by Fazbear Entertainment, and Henry would never allow Afton Robotics to join forces with Fazbear, since he probably knew what the Fun Times were meant for. All this to say that Henry is now kicked out of Fazbear and looking for a job to get by. Since he's a robotics engineer, he goes for the one thing he knows how to do very well: build animatronics and run a restaurant. And this is where the Mediocre step in. In the Fazbear Fright stories The Puppet Carver and Dance With Me, we see two examples of a kiddie restaurant themed around a collection of colorful barnyard animals, namely the Pizza Playground and Burger Barn, respectively. The Puppet Carver makes this connection extremely obvious with the introduction of a bear, a chicken, and a pig, likely Ned Bear, Chica, and Pigpatch. More on Chica in a bit. Anyway, in Dance With Me, the Burger Barn is opened right next to a Circus Baby's Pizza World, almost as if it's trying to feed off the establishment's success. However, in both stories, the restaurants aren't doing too well. The puppet carver's main conflict is that the pizza playground is going bankrupt, and in Dance With Me, the food seems way too cheap to be a sustainable business. Thus, I think Henry's knockoff business didn't go too well. The Character Encyclopedia and Ultimate Custom Night both point out that the Mediocres feel a bit too similar to the Freddy's Band to be entirely distinct, with both even calling out how similar Nedbear is to Freddy Fazbear. Happy Frog's voice lines also show us that she's literally meant to be Freddy Fazbear's replacement, trying to be better than him, although failing due to the Mediocre's inferior tech. I think Henry might have gone a step further and just ripped off the Freddy gang with the Rockstars, including Rockstar Chica, which resulted in Fazbear Entertainment either suing him or buying his company and restaurant and re-assimilating him into Fazbear Entertainment, which leads to him opening the 1993 Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. This seems far more likely since we see Mr. Hippo as a character owned by Fazbear in Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator and Security Breach. I also think Chica might have originally been created by Henry, since Rockstar Chica has the same southern accent most of the Mediocres do in Ultimate Custom Night. After the failure of his rip-off location, Henry packs up his characters in storage, leaving them unused until he needs them most. FNAF 6. I find it really fascinating how just the Mediocre's existence can help us create a little timeline of the history of Fazbear Entertainment and Henry's path after being kicked out of Fazbear. But we're not done yet. There's still a hugely important mystery left to uncover that I brought up earlier, why the Mediocre Melodies are given such importance in Ultimate Custom Night. The Vengeful Spirit only speaks for this group of animatronics, so he's gotta have some kind of connection to them, right? Well, yes, but not in the way you'd think. You see, one of the series of intermission cutscenes from Ultimate Custom Night might just be the key to solving who the Vengeful Spirit really is and why he's connected to the Mediocres. Note that what I'm about to say is mostly speculation and probably won't fit into my personal FNAF timeline on the channel. However, I still think this is extremely interesting and worth bringing up. In Toy Chica the High School Years, we see Chica try to lure some guys in her high school inside with her, but as the story progresses, it becomes increasingly clear that these cutscenes are showing William Afton and his murder victims. However, unlike most people, I don't think these cutscenes show how William killed his victims. Rather, I think they show who he killed. They show a scrambled order of the different groups of William's victims. Let me explain. Chica's first victim is Freddy, or the MCI. Next is Toy Bonnie, the DCI. Then comes the Puppet, Charlie, Phantom Foxy, or the sister location victims, Twisted Wolf, the Nightmare Experiment victims like Rory, and Pigpatch. All the other animatronics line up. Pigpatch feels out of place, like an extra character, but I assure you that he is not, because Pigpatch represents an extremely important murder that would forever change William Afton's life, or rather, undeath, the murder of a little boy called Andrew. So if this is sounding kind of insane to you, that's because it is. I think that Andrew, or at least the game's parallel version of Andrew, was murdered at a Mediocre Melody location like the Pizza Playground by William to get Henry's cheap knockoff location closed. This is why the Vengeful Spirit is linked to these things, why they're called the Mediocres, why they're always shown to be cheap copies of the Freddy Band. Because they were, and William hated it. Out of anger, jealousy, or both, William went to Henry's rip-off pizzeria, kidnapped and killed a random kid called Andrew. But this random kid wasn't gonna let that slide, because this kid was likely the one who became the Vengeful Spirit. I know. Shocking, right? Looks like #1 Cassidy fan over here actually accepted the little old Andrew's existence enough to make a whole theory about his story. Crazy, right? Well, looks like I can finally brush the old Cassidy's the one who should not have killed thing under the rug. No one will ever know, it never happened. Jokes aside, I'm not fully sold on Andrew being the Vengeful Spirit yet, but his theory might just be the one to change my mind. As well as that, the way Toy Chica kills Pigpatch is much more violent than any of the others. She hits him over the head with a shovel, throws a bag over his head, and throws him in the back of her car. I don't know about you, but I'd be pretty salty if that happened to me. Continuing, I think this is why Andrew is always singled out from the rest of Afton's victims in the books. Because, unlike the others, his death wasn't linked to a Fazbear Entertainment location. It was a separate pizzeria chain owned by Henry Emily that William specifically sought out to sabotage. The failure of that place was what allowed Fazbear Entertainment to buy Henry out and force him back into the company against his own will. However, there's still one more tiny bit of Mediocre Melody content we haven't unraveled yet, and although less shocking than my Big Andrew reveal, it's still worth bringing up, the Happiest Day minigame from FNAF 3. Aside from the fact that you're very obviously freeing the MCI kids in this minigame, you can also see a bunch of other kids whose masks look very similar to those of a group of animatronics we've seen before, the Mediocres. Aside from that one blue one, all of these masks look just like those characters, and I'm not the only one who thinks so. The Ultimate Guide itself uses every opportunity it gets to bring up the similarities between the masks and those characters. This seems to indicate that there could have been more dead kids, specifically 5 at the mediocre location Henry created, no pun intended. After all, there are 5 of them, and we all know William usually kills kids in groups of 5. But I don't know, maybe William killed them and stuffed them all into the mediocres, with Andrew being the one stuffed into Pigpatch and they moved on at some point. But that's up to debate, and I'm not sure there's enough evidence for that to really take it into consideration as a serious theory. I'm pretty happy with the rest of what we covered today, however, and I feel like we've reached a pretty solid conclusion. Mediocre melodies are way more important than we thought. So with that, I end my analysis of the mediocre melodies and their lore significance. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment if you enjoyed, and I'm sorry to say that I'll probably be unable to stream or make anything special during the FNAF anniversary week, since I'll be away, which sucks, but I do have a nice little anniversary project, so that's slated to come out on the 9th, so remember to watch that when it comes out. I've also got some shorts that should be coming out during the next 2 weeks, so yeah, check those out as well. Until then, this has been Withered Circle, the Midnight Theorist.